Now that we've actually created an estimate for our customer, when we get ready to invoice the customer, QuickBooks makes it really easy because we can actually pull in either a percentage of that estimate or we can pull in certain items that were on that estimate. Let me go ahead and show you how to create an invoice for your customer based on an estimate you've already created in QuickBooks. One of the things we talked about was the fact that if you're actually in an estimate, you can come up here and create an invoice right here in this estimate, but chances are you're not going to be on this screen when you're ready to create that invoice. I would do it right here from the home screen. You've already created your estimate. The next thing on the flowchart is to create invoices. The first thing I want to point out is that this looks very much like the estimate window did, so you'll have a lot of the same options. Go ahead and pull in your customer and your job, and you should get this available estimates window that appears. This is a list of all of the estimates for Tom Allen Sunroom that have not been pulled in all the way into an invoice. So even if you had an estimate with 1 penny left on it, it would show up in this list. If you don't get this window, go back and double check that you pulled in the exact same customer and job that you had on the actual estimate itself. Often what people will do is they will pick the customer on the estimate and not the job, and then they try to do it correctly here and there's no exact match. What I'm going to do is select the estimate I'd like to pull from and click OK. This is what we call progress invoicing. Remember, we turned that on in our preferences. Here I can do a couple of different things. If I wanted to go ahead and pull in 100% or everything that's on that estimate into this new invoice I'm creating, I could do it right now. I could create an invoice for a percentage that I choose. Or the third one lets me create an invoice for selected items or different percentages of each item. Here's what that means. I'll choose that one and click OK. These are the two items that we had on our estimate. I can go to each item and tell it that I'd like to pull in 3 of the framing and maybe 1 of the wood door. Or if I prefer, I might say 3 of the framing and a certain percentage of the wood doors. And that's okay, however you want to do it. You can type either in the quantity or the percentage field. I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and now it's pulled in exactly what I asked it to. If I wanted to add something to this, I could. I can just go ahead and click on the down arrow and go ahead and pull in whatever I'd like from this list. They have a delivery charge I'd like to pick, so I'm going to go ahead and choose it from this list. And I'll say I'd like to charge one of these at $100. So you can keep adding as many lines as you like to this. If you want to put some generic text in here, you don't need to put anything under the item. Just go ahead and type in the description area and you can type all day long anything you want. This will word wrap. Also, this is not the last line down here. You've got as many lines as you need to put in this particular invoice. Let's go ahead and look around the edges of the screen and see what we've got. First of all, we've talked about our customer and job, so let's go over and look at the class. Make sure if you're using the class feature that you use it consistently. That way you'll be able to run accurate reports on classes. This is going to be the template they're currently using for our invoice, and we'll talk in another module about going in and customizing this. This is the date that's pulled onto our invoice. I can change this date to anything I like. I'll go ahead and pick the 27th of December. And it also has the next invoice number. You can choose any number you like and it will number the next one sequentially. Here is the bill to information we had set up for our customer, and if you wanted to set up some ship to information for this one time only, you can certainly do that by typing it in the list over here. Our customer has terms set up of net 30. If I decided to change this, I could do it right here, and notice that it will default as the due date to 15 days from this date right up here. If you needed to put in a customer message, you can just choose it from this list here, and if you want to create a new one, you choose Add New. There is a place for a memo at the very bottom left, and you can type anything you like in there. That's really just more for you to know. This customer is taxable as far as sales tax is concerned, and this is the particular sales tax item that they will be charged. You'll see it gives you the total of the sales tax, the total, any payments that had been applied, and the balance due right down here at the bottom. Now let's go back up to the top and check out our main tab and see if there's anything new. You should be familiar with most of these already. We've talked about how to search. You can use the arrows or the find option. You know how to create a new, in this case an invoice. Here's your save option. So if you want to just save this invoice or save it as a PDF, you could do that. Here's your delete option to delete this invoice and also make a copy. We also talked a little bit about memorizing. If you needed this invoice to be in here every month on the first of the month, for example, then you could create it and then memorize it. Here's your mark as pending. Remember that if I click this box, it now says pending non-posting. That means that the invoice is in QuickBooks, but it will not show up in reports until you go ahead and mark it as final. And you'll notice once you do this, it just says invoice now. Here's where you can print your invoice. Let's go ahead and preview it so you can see what it looks like at this point. It's very generic. You can see that it's got all the information like your company name, the word invoice, but a lot of this you'd probably want to change. We're going to be able to do that when we get into talking about customizing our templates in a later module. So I'll just close that. We did talk a little bit as well about batches. If I wanted to print the batch, meaning I create several invoices and print them all at the same time, I'm going to actually check this little box, print later, and then I can come and print the batch. Same thing with the email. If I wanted to email a batch, I could do that. You could also from here print your packing slip, shipping label, and envelope if you needed to. Here's where you could attach a file. It could be that you've received some bills from your vendor and you want to just attach them to this invoice. Whatever it might be, you can go through and actually attach them here so you don't have to go look for them outside of QuickBooks later on. Now here's something new I do want to talk to you about. Add time/cost. You may be in a business where you accumulate different expenses during the month that you want to remember to turn around and invoice the customer for at the end of the month. Instead of keeping all those receipts or remembering what to invoice your customer for, QuickBooks will do that for you. Every time you have an expense, let's say you used your credit card and made a purchase, or if you actually wrote a check, for example, there's going to be a field that will ask you who is the customer and the job. And if you have chosen the customer and job and checked the little billable box next to it, then what happens is when you come in here next time to invoice Tom Allen's sunroom, you can click this button, Add Time/Cost, and you can pull in any time, expenses, mileage, or items that you need to, and it will just actually pull it right onto this invoice, and that way you can invoice the customer. So it's a great little feature if you need that. Here's where you can also apply some credits. Now we haven't talked about how to create a credit memo yet, but once you do create one, this would be where you could come to apply it to this invoice. I want to go ahead and stop the video here because we've got several more things we need to look at. Let's go ahead and move over to part 2 and we'll continue talking about invoicing from estimates.